Hey, welcome to YouTube. However, did you guys find me here? Okay, so this is basically all that I use for inking. Because everyone's always asking what kind of ink do you use, what brush is that, what pen is that, what eraser is that, um, etc., etc. So, what I use um, most of the time when I'm inking is I use the Raphael brush. So Raphael A404 size 2, um, and it is the orange tip one because there is the other one that is just as good, but I think the biggest difference is in the brush itself, the well part. I think the other one, the beige tip, this is the orange tip, but the beige tip will I think is longer, and I don't think it holds as much ink. This one holds a ton of ink. I can dip once and ink like forever, and and the tip stays nice and sharp. So Raphael 8404 is what I use for inking, and the other tool that I use right on a regular basis is the Hunt 102 nib, this guy. And I have for years and years and years and years and years and years um, I've I've been using this nib holder, which was introduced to me by another studio mate, Mark Irwin. He went to the Kubert School, and I believe he found it at the Kubert School art supplies. So that's where I got it from, and I've had this same one for like almost 20 years, and it is basically this little twisty thing, and this nib has been in here for a while, so it's probably it's stuck with all this crust, but there it is. And it's a very light holder, so there's hardly any weight to it. So if you like something light in your hand, that's perfect. And what I have on it is it's just that spongy grip that you get from any office supply or even drugstore. And I just cut mine in half because I don't really need that whole length of it, so just half is good. And it's gentler on your finger because it has that little textury thing. So that's the nib holder I was using forever and ever. And then I discovered these from Mr. Inkslinger Pens, and he sells it on Etsy, and they are beautiful pen holders. He makes a ton of different nib holders for calligraphy, and this has more weight, and like I said, it's handmade. It's beautiful, so it's easier to switch your nib with this little cool little boom, just like that. And if you're traveling, what you do is you just flip the nib, flip the nib, flip the nib, so the tip stays protected and you're cool and you're not going to stab anyone or anything unless you want to. But so it's great for traveling, and you can keep your nice nib protected by just flipping it. So that it's such a cool holder because it feels just like a pen in your hand, and it didn't require any adjustment at all for me to go from this holder to this. So it's very it's very user friendly, very very user friendly. And then for Christmas I got another one. He makes some really beautiful ones, so it's beautiful. So this is kind of, it's just for fun, and it's just cool to have and to collect. Works the same way, and it comes originally as a lead holder, so you can get a couple and use one for drawing and for lead, to hold your lead. So it comes with its own lead, but you can switch it off whatever lead you want. But yeah, super cool and super beautiful, and with a little more weight, and it's nice and thick, so it's a little friendlier on the grip. Like if you have a tighter grip, or if you use a tighter grip and your hand cramps after a short period, this is a lot easier to to I guess to hold. It's gentler on your hand. So I recommend you go out there and check out the pens that he has. He has a lot of different ones, and it's kind of a luxury item, but it's worth having because you can use it for pencils, for writing, for calligraphy if you do that, or if you just want to get fancy. People don't write anymore, but it's just kind of a fun way to play around if you want to write notes and stuff. So I also use this now. Um, and the ink I use is the Graf Ultra Draw. There, I think some people use the Universal as well, and I've tried that, but I like the Ultra Draw better because it when it doesn't dry. The Universal dries faster, but it also leaves behind like a crusty residue that I don't really like, and it just gunks up my pen more, and whereas like this it's perfect for me. It doesn't leave as heavy of a residue, and I don't have to constantly clean my tools as I'm still using it. Um, so that is the ink I've been using for probably close to 20 years as well. When I find something I like, I kind of stick to it. Okay, and it comes in this, well, I guess you can, I don't know if you can get a bigger bottle, you might, but I've always gotten these smaller bottles with a little drip top, and it's just, you don't need any fancy ink holder or ink well or anything. I just have this old Tiger Balm bottle, and I just put a couple drips in as I work because it will evaporate and get thick on you. So when it gets thick, I just add a little bit more water. So you just play around with, I ink for hours and hours. I will work anywhere from like 10 to 18 hours a day. So the ink will dry. So you have to, just keep adding a few drips to your bottle. Just not like to fill the bottle, but just to like a good like dipping depth. Just so when you dip your pen in, it doesn't go above this little well, or the groove right there, the little hole thing. So it goes right above it, but not like all the way to here. So just right above that little opening, this little thing, the little eye. Okay, so that's my ink well. Nothing fancy. And for the whites, I actually combine the FW and the Pro White, because the FW is it's acrylic, and it's kind of like it dries to like a shiny surface, and this is more of a matte surface. And this, for some reason, I like the combination of the two together. This is kind of like when it dries, is like more of a chalky, matte surface when it dries. But I mix the two, and just I use it to flick white, for corrections, for highlights, for everything. So I just use like a couple drops of each and just add water to mix them. As they both do thicken over time, and the liquid evaporates and it becomes kind of thick and pasty. For that, I just use water. So and it gets dirty and messy. So obviously these are the ones that I've been using, and they last for a long, long time. It depends on how much you use, but I don't use a ton, so a couple bottles will last for a long time. Like years. Okay, and to apply the white, like even for corrections or just to flick or whatever, I just grab another brush, and it's just, you can grab any brush as long as you have a decent tip where you can still use it to get some fine correcting lines. But and I'm not as picky about my white correcting brush as I am about just the brush that I use to ink every day, because I use this for a lot of details: face, hair, lashes, rendering, everything. So there you go. That is pretty much everything that I use. Oh, and I guess, yeah, well, here is, and I always have like a bottle of water on the side, just, like I said, to add it to my ink, to mix my white. And it has just, I mean, it's just an old makeup bottle, but you can get any old bottle with just a little dropper. So you can just add drops at a time to dilute as you need. And of course, you guys have seen me use, I didn't put it up here because everyone's going to think I'm a drug addict. But I know I'm from New Hampshire, but no, I do not use. But I have one for my ink and one for my whites, and it's, when I'm mixing the two, this is kind of what I use. This is my well, and just, couple drops of these and just a couple of drops of water, mix it, and I use it, you've seen me flick from it. And I do the same thing with ink if I need to flick. And I mean, there's a million and one different ways of doing everything. So these are not the only tools, the only techniques, the only method. There's so many different ways, and you find your own way, or you can, take a tip from someone else who has been using a certain technique for a while. But but so there you go. These are the things that I use. You can try it or not. As you please. But no matter what you use, whether it be whatever ink or pen or whites or, oh, I forgot my eraser. Okay, I know there's a lot of questions about erasers and how, whether or not, it will lift the ink. Well, it's not a question. A lot of the erasers will lift the ink. So when you clean up, the biggest pain for, I think, a lot of us inkers, is that it will, when you erase, it will lift the ink. And a lot of times you'll have to go back and almost like re-ink or reapply. It depends on how hard the pencilers draw. If they carve the paper, you have to like put that much more elbow grease. So in doing so, to lift all the lead and all the mess that's on the paper, you end up erasing a lot of the ink. I mean, the ink will get lifted along with the lead. So unfortunately, you have to go back in and correct and reapply and all that, and ink will fade. And I've tested many different ink brands and erasers just to get the best combination possible. And for me, these work the best. This ink has the best staying power that will, I guess,